Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 41. Nārada uvāca mā kañcana shuno rājan yad īśvara-vaśaṁ jagat lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme vahanti balim īśituḥ saṁyunakti bhūtāni viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca mā kañcana shuno rājan yad īśvara-vaśaṁ jagat lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme vahanti balim īśituḥ saṁyunakti bhūtāni viyunakti ca. Nārada uvāca mā kañcana shuno rājan yad īśvara-vaśaṁ jagat lokāḥ sapālā yasyeme vahanti balim īśituḥ saṁyunakti bhūtāni viyunakti ca. Dajis. Nārada uvāca. Nārada said, Ma, never. Kañcana, by all means. Śucaḥ, do you lament. Rājan, O king. Yat, because. īśvara-vaśaṁ, under the control of the Supreme Lord. Jagat, world. Lokāḥ, all living beings. Sapālāḥ, including their leaders. Yasya, whose. Ime, all these. Vahanti, do bear. Balim, means of worship. īśituḥ, for being protected. Saha, he. Saṁyunakti, gets together. Bhūtāni, all living beings. Saha, he, eva, also, viyunakti, disperses, cha, and. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Śrī Nārada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. Purport. Every living being, either in this material world or in the spiritual world, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Beginning from Brahmaji, the leader of this universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are abiding by the orders of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the constitutional position of the living being is subordination under the control of the Lord. The foolish living being, especially man, artificially rebels against the law of the Supreme and thus becomes chastised as an asura or lawbreaker. A living being is placed in a particular position by the order of the Supreme Lord, and he is again shifted from that place by the order of the Supreme Lord or his authorized agents, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra, Maharaj Yudhishthir, or in the modern history, Napoleon, Akbar, Alexander, Gandhi, Subhash, and Nehru, all are servants of the Lord, and they are placed in and removed from their respective positions by the supreme will of the Lord. Name of them is independent. Even though such men or leaders rebel so as not to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, they are put under still more rigorous laws of the material world by different miseries. Only the foolish man, therefore, says that there is no God. Maharaj Yudhishthir was being convinced of this naked truth because he was greatly overwhelmed by the sudden departure of his old uncles and aunt. Maharaja Dhritarashtra was placed in that position according to his past deeds. He had already suffered or enjoyed the benefits occurred to him in the past, but due to his good luck, somehow or other, he had a good younger brother, Vidura, and by his instructions, he left to achieve salvation by closing all accounts in the material world. Ordinarily, one cannot change the course of one's due happiness and distress by plan. Everyone has to accept them as they come under the subtle arrangement of kala, or invincible time. There is no use trying to counteract them. The best thing is, therefore, that one should endeavor to achieve salvation, and this prerogative is given only to man because of his developed condition of mental activities and intelligence. Only for man are there different Vedic instructions for attainment of salvation during the human form of existence. One who misuses this opportunity of advanced intelligence is verily condemned and put into different types of miseries, either in this present life or in the future. That is the supreme control. That is the way the Supreme controls everyone. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhūtale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So first of all, I'd like to apologize at the lotus feet of all the devotees that I was late. Something had come up and I had to attend to it. So sorry for that. Learning from this verse, Maharaja Dhritarashtra, he has done a lot of things since the Pandavas were small children. Whatever Duryodhana had done to them was all approved by Dhritarashtra. The poisoning, the house of lac, the gambling match, everything was approved by Dhritarashtra. So he is quite nasty towards the Pandavas. But Maharaj Yudhishthira, being a devotee, he never saw those aspects. He was called Ajata Shatru. Ajata Shatru means whose enemy was never born. It was mentioned in Mahabharata that he would not even call Duryodhana as Duryodhana. He would call him as Suyodhana. Duryodhana means one who is a terrible warrior. Terrible means you can't face him, he's so powerful. But it has the word du. Du means bad, terrible, kind of. So he used to call him Suyodhana. Suyodhana means he's a very good warrior. He's so good that nobody can face him. So even though a person who has done so many things wrong, he would still not call him badly. Just few verses back, we hear that Maharaj Yudhishthira is so sad. He's telling, it's like when we were small children and my father died, these two uncles took very good care of me. Of course, Vidura, he was very expert diplomat. He was the prime minister and he knew everything that is happening. So every time Duryodhana planned something, it was approved by Dhritarashtra, but the Pandavas were always protected by Vidura. He always told them, be prepared. Things are coming, wrong ways, be prepared. And he always took care of them. But even for Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhishthira is saying that he took such nice care of us. This is the first thing we should learn. Right? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also mentions, Hamanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Don't demand or expect that people will respect you. But in return, you give them all respect. You take examples of every great Vaishnava. They were all like that. They were always ready to give respect, but they didn't expect anything back. If it came by the mercy of the Lord. If it didn't come, what to do? It's my bad karma. Right? So they were always like that. And then, Maharaj Yudhishthira lamenting like that, Narada Muni explains, don't worry about it so much. Because whatever you have, you will lose it anyway. Right? And Srila Prabhupada, he gives list of great personalities who tried, who were very influential people, who have achieved a lot of things. But at the end, when they left,
They couldn't take anything. History explains when Alexander, he conquered a lot. And he came all the way from Europe all the way to India. He conquered some parts, but then he was defeated by the Brahmanas. How did the Brahmanas defeat him? They were when he conquered. Anyway, it was the first region. No, I think it was even before. Anyway, he conquered that area, then he came down and he came down to the Arabian Sea. He wanted to travel back. And so before he could travel back, the Brahmanas, they started, mocking him and joking with him. So he caught them. He says, "Why are you?" Because he was an intellectual as well. He liked philosophy. Greek. How was that? Anyway, there's a country next to Greece, anyway. So he was an intellectual. So these Brahmanas are making joke of him, and he's saying, "Why are you doing this to me?" He says, "Why are you fighting so much? Why are you endeavoring so much? Anyway, you are going to die. And when you die, you won't be able to take anything that you have conquered. And you have basically conquered, the whole world. So what's the point?" And that clicked, and he said, "Okay, I'm not conquering anymore." Right? And then he was murdered by his own people. He was poisoned. But in his will, he had written that when you bury me, my hands should be out of my coffin. Why? He said that the conqueror of the world, Alexander, when he died, he had nothing in his hands. Right? He left empty-handed. He had nothing. So the message he wanted to give was, don't over-endeavor. Lord mentions that's all ugra karma. Don't over-endeavor for anything. Whatever is yours, you will get it anyway. There is absolutely no need for passionately searching for something material. Passionately doing activities that are spiritual, that is uplifting. Why? Because when you die, you will take all those spiritual wealth back with you. Even if you don't make it back to Godhead, it will still continue with you for your next life. It all remains with you. So if you need to use up that passionate energy, do it for the spiritual aspects. For example, we are having the marathon, right? The Gita marathon happening. Devotees are passionately distributing Bhagavad Gita. But we are passionately distributing Bhagavad Gita to have records. Right? Oh, this person distributed 5,000 Gitas. This one did 15,000 Gitas. Main aspect is also reading Bhagavad Gita. There was one Mataji in Europe. She, was distributing Bhagavad Gita, and she came upon a Muslim person. So, he says, I'm Muslim. I don't want. He says, so what? This is not a Hindu book. It's the science of self-realization. It will teach you how to surrender to Allah better. It will teach you how you should behave properly. And she continued talking. This boy, his father was with him, and he says, yes, please tell him. He says he's Muslim, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't chant the namaz, doesn't go to the mosque, nothing. I tried my whole life. Please, preach to him. And then this Mataji is like, why are you not being religious? Talk about it. And then she spent like half an hour talking. And this boy was like, okay, thank you very much. How much should I buy for this? How much should I pay for this book? He says, No, nothing. And then so he removed, 10 euros. He said, take. He says, I will only take this 10 euros if you promise to read the book. He says, no, I won't. It's just. So then she continued preaching. After some time, he removed another 10 euros. Like, keep this 20 euros, I'll take the book. It was the same thing. Unless you're going to read, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to accept. And then she continued. She spent about 3 hours talking to the person. Right? Trying to distribute one Bhagavad Gita. Trying to make him to read one Bhagavad Gita. 3 hours. At the end, the person gave her 100 euros. Right? 1 euro is about 75 rupees. So 100 euros is 7,500 rupees. So she distributed one Gita for 7,500. But she convinced the person to read Bhagavad Gita every day. Eventually, this person became a full-time devotee. Right? So that's the power of distribution. Why? That passion was there, to save this jiva. You don't have to become Hindu. You just read Bhagavad Gita and follow your own religion properly. Just do that. But read Gita. That was the passion. So that is not ugra karma. You just saved a living being from going through, hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. This person was saved. And at the end, what it is? Be detached. Whatever it is. If Krishna approves for you, a mansion and wealth for you, take it. If he sanctions a small hut, take it. It was just the other day, I was discussing with one devotee, and we were talking that Srila Prabhupada, if you go to Juhu and see his quarters in Juhu, it's no less than a king's palace. Beautiful. He has his big desk, his chair, the carpets there, the furniture, the lights, the chandeliers. Srila Prabhupada has different rooms for doing different things. He's meeting someone in one room, he's taking rest in one room, he's writing his books in one room. It's like beautiful. Srila Prabhupada comes to Mayapur, he has that hut in which the deities are sitting there, the brahmacharis are there, the kitchen is right at the back. In a shed, you can see that hut. Right? But in that place also, he is the same. He said, Bombay is my office, Vrindavan is my home, and Mayapur is my place of worship. Right? It did not matter for him. In Vrindavan also he had a very nice room in which he had different, not as opulent as Mumbai, but when he comes to Mayapur, it's the same. It's like he remains the same. Because why? He's detached. What is he doing? In his last breath, he's surrounded by devotees, those who are performing kirtan. Right? He has still, he was working on translating Srimad Bhagavatam and giving the purports. Śrīla Prabhupada said, I came to give my purports. Recently we saw the departure of Pankajangri Prabhu. How was he? He was all, laughing. Not laughing, but he was happy. Today morning I saw his video when he came to Mayapur. Right? The ambulance came all the way inside Radha Madhava's courtyard so he could directly see Narasimhadev. And he's there, waving his hands. There's a, happiness in his eyes. He's telling hello to all the devotees. And he had this mask on so he couldn't talk. But he was happy. Yeah. And then, 2 days before his departure, because he was not able to talk, he wrote 2 days and gave a thumbs up. So we all thought in 2 days he's going to get, fine. He's going to recover. But 2 days later, yeah, he did. He went straight back to Godhead. Then even more recently, we saw the departure of Rajendranandan Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple. He was in Mayapur for a very long time. But when he departed, he was in his home with his family member. He said, "Do not pray for my recovery." They found out that he had 4th stage cancer, and doctors gave him 3 months. He said, please, he asked the devotees, do not pray for my recovery, because right now I am in good Krishna consciousness. I want to die now. He left his body in 2 weeks. He was talking with Jananivas Prabhu over the video call, and he said, you don't really realize it till you are there. We have been suffering in this material world for lifetimes, and now I can see the finish line. The race is going to over. I am there at the finish line, and then I'm going back. Right? He's ready to departure. How can you lament on the departure of these great devotees? Last year we had one devotee. Before he used to be a Mayapur resident, but then he shifted back to his home, in South India. And then he came to Mayapur for making arrangements for his daughter's wedding. He did everything. This was in last year, January or so. He did everything. Everything was arranged. And since he was a long resident of Mayapur, the devotees asked him to give Bhagavatam class. He gave Bhagavatam class, and then he was going back to his country, his house. He was outside Namahatta gate, had a heart attack, left this world. In Sri Mayapur, just after speaking Bhagavatam. What a glorious departure. In Bhagavatam also mentions when Prithu Maharaj is going back, the demigods are there with flowers in their hands to offer it. They're playing on the drum. Why? Because this person is going back to Godhead. They are so happy to see that somebody is going back home, back to Godhead. They start worshipping and welcoming him through when the Vimana is going through the heavenly planets. Right? So Narada Muni is saying, do not lament on departures of these great personalities, because they have finished their sufferings. It's over for them. It's no more. And it's just depend on Krishna, because he brings all the living entities together, he disperses them. So then, it's all over. Don't remain attached. Remain detached. Because attachment is the cause of all sufferings. If you're not attached to something, you're not upset when you lose it. Right? It's gone. So it was not mine anyway. So why should I be worried about it? So that's why Narada Muni says, don't lament. And you cannot, this can only happen if you are Krishna conscious. At a departure of a nearby person, yes, you will feel sad. It's no doubt about it. But know it for sure that the person has gone back home, back to Godhead. So if Narasimhadev mentions to Prahlad Maharaj, when he's asking, please ask for some benediction. I really want to give you something. At the end, Prahlad Maharaj, he says, if you're really pleased with me and you want to give me something, then you give me that my father he gets shelter at your lotus feet. He gets liberation. He says, that's already granted. And that's no question, because you are a devotee. 10 generations before you, 10 generations after you, and you are going back home, back to Godhead. It's not happening anymore. So, if we become fully Krishna conscious, if we become qualified enough to go back to Godhead, we are taking another 20 generations with us. That is promised by the Lord. Yeah. But like for Pandavas, how glorious. They had Vidurji, they had Pitama Bhishma, they had the Pandavas, right? Kunti Maharani, Parikshit Maharaj. And if you see all 4 generations, you had Bhishma, then from there you got Vidura, then you got the Pandavas, from them you got Parikshit Maharaj. It's like 4 generation package of pure devotees. Right? Pure, and out of them 2 are Mahajans. Like Vidurji is Yamaraj. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans. They are all. So if we perform our devotional service to that caliber, we are going back home, back to God. And if we are like that, know it for sure, our children will be like that as well. Srila Prabhupada used to say, there are Vaikuntha children, those who take birth in this movement. Why? Because they have already performed Krishna consciousness. Due to some reason, their bhakti could not be finished. That's why they have taken birth now, to end their suffering and go back home, back to Godhead. But at the same time, it's our responsibility to make sure that they don't get involved in some unwanted association. Because when they get involved with that unwanted association, then their devotional service is stopped again. Then they would have to take birth again. So that's why Bhagavatam says, don't become a father, a mother, a guru, or a relative if you cannot take or a king, if you cannot take your subordinates back to Godhead. So in the first canto, we will always see, they are always stressing on different aspects of devotees going back home, back to Godhead, and how they perform their devotional service. The first and the second canto are considered as the lotus feet of the Lord. How we, how we could think and meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. How we can approach the lotus feet of the Lord. So there are many, many prayers like that. So this is what we can learn. Just depend fully on Krishna and don't worry about different things that happens to us. Because Krishna will always take care. He will always do that. If we are surrendered to Him, He will always take care. And I'm sure, all of you sitting here, in your lives, you must have realized how Krishna took care. Just from out of nothing, He was there to grant you everything. Right? You must have been in some situations, you have no idea how to come out of it. And then suddenly, without you even knowing about it, you are out of that situation. And you're like, oh wow, that ended well. How did that happen? No, that was Krishna taking care of you. Why, He's there, He's like this. We are right here. Yeah. Hare Krishna. So we'll end here. Anybody has any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. You quoted this Prabhupada saying, Vrindavan is his home and Bombay is his office, Mayapur is his place of worship. So we have the new Srila Prabhupada Murti in TOVP with folded hands. I guess it represents Srila Prabhupada in the mode of worship. Is that the correct understanding? And are we going to do Guru Puja to this Murti? Because it feels a little odd, like you're going and offering flowers to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is, with his folded hands. Like, this is the mood Prabhupada has towards the deities, correct? But then when we do Guru Puja to this, because you see Prabhupada is sitting on Vyasasana like that, Guru means one who is heavy, correct? But this is a different mood, so can you throw some light how to understand this?
Ramanujacharya had a disciple called Kuresh. So, Ramanujacharya, he had his set of deities he would worship. And then, they were traveling like that. And he told Kuresh, pack up the deities. So he packed them up nicely. He took the shoes of Ramanujacharya, placed it on top of the box in which the deities are there, and he performed Guru Puja. Ramanujacharya says, well, you're mad? What are you doing? That's my shoes. He said, for you, that's your shoes. For me, that's God. Yeah. So, for me, there is no difference between the Lord sitting inside the box and the shoes on top. Because you are my Guru. You're taking me back to Godhead. Yeah. The difference between Krishna and one's Guru is, it's almost no difference. Because when we serve Guru, then, we serve Krishna. Krishna also says in Narada Puran, he's telling Narada Muni, he said, somebody who worships me directly, I don't consider him as my devotee. But somebody who is a devotee of my devotee, I consider that person as my devotee. So when we are according to Pancharatra, when you're performing worship, you're always doing it as, I am the servant of my Guru and he is performing the worship. So that's why the first thing we do is called Guru Pankti Namaskar. You're worshipping your Guru, like that. So when and there is also an instance when the devotees were doing Guru Puja. This was told by Atma Tattva Prabhu when he was together with Lokāḥ Maharaj. Lokāḥ Maharaj made in the same temple, and that time Atma Tattva Prabhu's name was Swami Atmananda. He was a Mayavadi sannyasi. So devotees are performing Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is sitting there singing the Guru Puja. So Atma Tattva Prabhu asked Lokāḥ Maharaj, why is he singing? We are all worshipping him. Why is he singing? He says, because at that time he is serving his Guru. So that time it convinced Atma Tattva Prabhu. He says, okay, I am taking Diksha from him. It's like, why? He says, because when we are serving this person, instead of accepting that service, yes, it's for me, he's taking it immediately. He's offering it to his Gurudev. Now that's the mood of Srila Prabhupada. So even though if we are serving the form of Srila Prabhupada in which he is serving, he takes and offers it to the parampara, which goes up to Radha Madhava Ashtasakhi, like that. So it won't be disturbing Srila Prabhupada or hindering the mood of Srila Prabhupada when we worship him, when he is there worshipping the Lord.
Certainly it won't disturb the mood of Srila Prabhupada, but what about the mood of the practicing devotees when they are offering? Because it can set a different mood, because we are servants of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada worshipping or offering it to his Guru is Prabhupada's internal mood, towards the Lord and his Guru.
No, that is also, how to say, you can worship the Lord in different moods, right? Like once I asked, there was Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj and Radhanath Maharaj. We went for a deity installation program. And then after the end of the deity installation, Radhanath Maharaj, said the name of the deities and like that. So the Jananyas Prabhu, Radhanath Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj, they're all sitting down, and I asked a question. He said, whenever we have these installations, we name them Radha Madhava, Radha Giridhari, Radha Rasabihari, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath. So the name Radha remains. Krishna's name changes. Why is that? Why Radharani's name doesn't change? That always remains. So all three of them looked at each other and they're like, interesting question. They thought about it a little bit. And then Radhanath Maharaj, he said, our service with Srimati Radharani, our mood with Srimati Radharani is that of servant. That does not change. But our mood with Krishna could be anything. It could be, he could be in the mood of Govinda and we can serve him. He could be in the mood of Gopinath, we can serve him. He could be in the mood of Madan Mohan, we can serve him. He could be in the mood of Madhava, we can serve him. Depending on our mood, we can serve him. So with the same with Guru, he can be in any mood. We are his servant. Like once I remember my Guru Maharaj was taking prasad and some rice fell from his mouth on his clothes. And I was sitting there, I stood up and I picked it up. And everybody's looking at me, how can you do that? Do what? How can you pick up the rice from your Guru's lap? He's my Guru. He's my father. I have seen him since I was born. I have that relationship with him. When he's going out, if his button is not, I said, Maharaj, can I, close your buttons? Why? He's my Guru. I can approach him whenever, anytime. But we need to have the depth of relationship with him. If it's like only worshipable, that's okay. It's nothing wrong. But if you have a deeper relationship, then especially for all of us, Srila Prabhupada is like a grandfather. Srila Prabhupada, we used to say, I could be heavy, but Bhakti Siddhanta would be more happy with you. Why? Because you are his grand disciples. A grandfather is always more loving. So that's the mood. It's not a problem.
Thank you, Prabhu. I hope we will develop such a deep mood like yourself by the time we move to TOVP.
Okay.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Just say it in the mic, Prabhuji.
In the reference to that question and your answer, at Chaitanya Math, the deity name is Gandharvika Giridhari Jiv. So Gandharvika is the name of the Radharani?
Yes.
So Gandharvika Giridhari Jiv.
That's only one.
Yes. Thank you so much.
That's within the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, there's only one deity I have seen of Srimati Radharani with a name as Gandharvika. And why is she Gandharvika? Because she is serving Giridhari. So when they are singing, they're still singing Jaya Gandharvika Giridhari, Gandharvika Giridhari Śrī Nārada. Right? So that aspect of service is still involved. And that's the only one deity I have seen. There is no other form in that. Anything else? No? Okay, so we'll end here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radha Madhavashta Sakhi Vrinda Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai. Shri Pralad Narasimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.